We have the principal of the Kinesiology College of Ireland and the president of the IKC, which is the same person, Ger Casey. And we also have a very active member of the International Kinesiology College Personal Development School Board, Pablo Lopez Martinez, and they're going to give us the next 20 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First, I want to introduce our speaker. I want to say something about her. She is a practicing kinesiologist since 1992. She has been trained extensively with many of the world's top kinesiologists in Ireland and all around the world. She is a registered Touch for Health instructor with the International Kinesiology College since 1995, maybe a lot of time. In March of 2003, Ger was appointed as the International Kinesiology Faculty member to represent Ireland. She is a PDS author, teaching her course Color Matters since 2005. In 2008, the faculty of the International Kinesiology College elected Ger as the Touch for Health School Dean, a post which she held until March 2011. She has been a very important support throughout the process of changing the TFH board in Spain, providing support as caretaker faculty until the situation was normalized with the appointment of a new faculty in 2020, who was myself. In 2008, she was elected as the Dean of the Personal Development School until 2020, when she became the current president of the International Kinesiology College, position that she performs with great enthusiasm and professionalism, showing that with effort and work, we can get where we want to be. This year, during the international conference at Budapest, he has been honored with the John Thie Award, the most important recognition of the International Kinesiology College for the excellent work that she carries out at the head of the IKC Executive Board. She has taught many face-to-face and online courses, and now we want you to tell us a little bit about your experience. So, Ger, can you tell us some differences that you find between face-to-face and online learning?
But thank you for a lovely introduction. And it's great to see everybody. Yeah, I suppose with the COVID and the pandemic hitting us all and stopping us doing what we were used to doing in classrooms, we moved to Zoom to teach. And that was a huge learning curve for many of us. But, you know, 2 years on now, so many of us are so used to being on Zoom and communicating this way. And it has become a wonderful way to teach. So there's major differences. I suppose the major differences is depending on the course for people, it's that it's touch. If you're doing Touch for Health, you know, you're not actually, don't have somebody to practice on, so they've used self-applied pressure. But for some other courses, it's been really effective. For some of the emotional courses and stuff, it has been really effective for that. And they're a lot of courses and a lot of the PDS courses are very suitable to Zoom. There's advantages and disadvantages of both. I suppose for online, the advantages would be students don't have to have travel, so they don't have to have the expense of accommodation or traveling, and they can be in their own homes. One of the things I noticed that was really useful was that when I was doing some of Wayne's work, which is in the PDS, I was teaching some of the emotional work, was that students really liked the privacy of the breakout rooms. And this was interesting because they felt that they could go deeper into emotions in a breakout room because they didn't have somebody, you know, next to them in the classroom that was possibly listening to what they were saying, and they weren't as conscious of that. So that was one that we, you know, that was unexpected. We weren't expecting that, but that was good. And, you know, it's nice to be able to prepare nice PPT, you know, PowerPoint presentations and that for online that is easy to access. Disadvantages would be you're much more challenged online if you have to teach muscle testing, particularly if they haven't done muscle testing previously. If they have, it's much easier, but if they haven't, it's much more challenging. And students don't get to feel the experience of a balance or giving a balance and that. So from the work like Touch for Health and that, it's a little bit more challenging. There's less social interaction at breaks with other students. That would be a disadvantage, because I think we meet people and make friends at breaks and stuff as well. And the other thing that would be a disadvantage is you may have to post out manuals ahead of class time if you don't want to risk the electronic ones being copied and that. Our students particularly like to print their manuals and have them printed, so we posted them ahead and that. The face-to-face advantages, it's easier to teach muscle testing face-to-face and for students to practice on each other and get that feel of giving a balance and receiving a balance. And there's certainly more interactions with other students and it's easier to give out manuals. And the disadvantages, I suppose, of face-to-face is if your students are traveling from distances that they have extra expenses with accommodation and that. So they would be the major ones that I would have had experience for that.
And how was your experience as a student or instructor?
And as a teacher, so I've done both. I've been a teacher online and I have been a student online. So as a teacher, I've discovered that you need to prepare your documents really well and have them ready and open on your computer so that you can share them when you're teaching. And you need to be very aware of how many people are in the class at any one time. So you're watching your participant numbers so that if somebody's dropped off, you notice that they've dropped off, and to be ready to admit them back in again. So you have to do that. If you're teaching anything to do with muscles, you have to be very clear. I had a wonderful experience. It was a really good experience for me. I was taking a class with Sylvia and she asked me to teach muscle testing. I had my son as a demo and I was about to start and I realized there was a gentleman on the line who was blind and I couldn't say, do you see this? And I had to really think very carefully how I worded what I was saying. And that was a great experience because it made me be very clear about what I was saying, you know, that you had to actually say that you have to extend the arm and you actually have to say what you're doing, not just show what you're doing. And that was putting it into language. That was really good. So sometimes if you're teaching classes that you need to see the whole body, you have to have a camera that can pick up your whole body and you may need a fisheye lens for that as well. That could be a good thing for teaching if you need to do it. Touch for Health, the Touch for Health School have done a whole program with the online committee in self-applied pressure, so they've allowed us to do that. A lot of people have been teaching self muscle testing, like using muscles like the brachioradialis or the quadriceps or maybe the anterior tibials. So they've been useful to be able to teach people. As a student, it's quite an easy experience, actually. It was lovely. You sit back at home and listen. And I've taken classes from Jackie. I've taken classes from Sylvia and from Marco Rado. When there's physical stuff, you kind of miss out on not having somebody to practice on if you're a solo student. That was a little thing. But one of the Irish Touch for Health instructors had discovered that if you want to teach muscle testing, to use a balloon and have them blow up a balloon and put it on the table and use that to practice the pressure. I thought that was a really good tip. But it was very nice to have my classes come to me in the comfort of my own home. I've had very, very positive experiences with classes online. And apart from that, we've been building communities online because of that too.
How did you learn to set up Zoom classes?
Okay. So this was interesting because I've been using Zoom and Skype before it since I think probably 2008 for IKC meetings. So I'm very good at getting onto meetings. However, teaching on Zoom is a very different experience than just having a meeting. And for that, we have a PDS approved course with Jackie Lysett. So I took that class, which is facilitating online teaching and learning. It's an approved PDS course. Jackie can correct me, it's a day or a half a day. But it was, and some homework, and we came back and it was really good. Now this taught me how to do things like use the breakout rooms, which I didn't know how to use. It taught me how to use whiteboards, how to make it fun, how to make sure you have your documents ready and open. And so that was really, there was a lot of Zoom features I didn't know were there that I'd never used because you don't need them in meetings. I'd been able to share screen, but that was probably about the extent of it. Have a meeting, get on, meet everybody and share screen. But there was so many features that I did. So this was an amazing course that Jackie did. Thank you, Jackie. And that was really, really good for that.
Okay, and my last question. How would you encourage PDS authors to teach their own courses online?
Oh, listen, I would, because Sylvia has been doing it since 2020, I imagine. I know other people are doing it. I know Wayne's doing it. And it's a completely different experience. But you know what? Your audience isn't limited. You can have people from anywhere in the world could come and do it. You do have to think about how you handle certain things online. But I mean, if your course is not completely 100% physical, then particularly with the emotional work or anything like that, or the non-kinesiology work that's in the PDS, I would say absolutely go for it and teach it online, because it's been a really good experience and you just build a community and it's so good.
So thank you very much. If someone has to do any question to Ger, maybe now is the time.
Yes, Chair, you mentioned that you learned how to use the whiteboard. Do you find you actually use the whiteboard very much in online teaching?
I do sometimes. One of the things, I'm not very good at drawing with my fingers or with a mouse, but if I'm on an iPad, I find that the iPencil is easier to do that with. So from that, so that if you're on your finger, actually I'm probably better with your finger than a mouse, drawing circles and drawing 5 elements with the mouse is a bit of a challenge, and it can look things. But and I suppose the other thing is you can pre-prepare it and put it onto the whiteboard,
Okay.
Yeah, and I find that use. But yeah, I do use it sometimes, but probably not as much as I'd use a PowerPoint or a slide or something like that and have it ready to go.
Okay.
But it's easy to put up a slide and draw over it. So if you're doing, say, for instance, 5 elements, you can put that up and then draw over it, which is really, really handy.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Wayne.
Ger, it's a privilege to have met you through kinesiology course that we're doing. And I do have a question for you. When you started learning about it, did you know that you wanted to go into teaching? I have 2 questions. And are you a good public speaker? And if not, how did you overcome? How do you work with public speaking?
Well, that's a really good question. And am I a good public speaker? You'll have to ask the people that listen to me. But I can tell you that when I was a little girl, I was one of these children that used to stand just behind my dad's leg when he was meeting people. And he used to say, "This is my daughter Geraldine, she's shy." I actually thought it was my name at some stage, that She's Shy might have been my second name because it just kept coming. So when I got into kinesiology, I suppose I didn't know I wanted to teach initially. I was probably in kinesiology 5 years before I started to teach it. But once I started to teach, I absolutely loved it. I was teaching previously, so I've kind of always ended up teaching because I used to be a piano teacher before that when I left school. So I used to teach piano to children. So I do enjoy teaching. And that's good. Public speaking was a little bit more, so I don't know how I think ESR, a lot of ESR, a lot of emotional stress release before you speak. But I've become very comfortable with public speaking. Discovered that I can actually talk to people, and I find I'm better without notes because then I'm just me. If I have notes, I'm dreadful. So does that answer your question?
It does, thank you. Just kind of go along as you go along, as you learn more and experience more, that public speaking comes natural. Yeah,
I think it did. And I think actually, I have to be honest and say that I think the training workshop for the Touch for Health course was probably what got me over the initial standing up in front of the classroom and teaching people. That was just an amazing course. It was an 8-day course that we all do to become touch for health instructors. And it was absolutely super for getting us over it, because it builds your confidence. It's designed to build your confidence, and it did that for me.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sylvia.
Just a couple of things for me to say. In teaching online, the first way that I did it was probably about 2010 or 2012. Russia wanted me to go back to Russia again, and that would have been the third time in 12 months. And the applications and what you have to surrender your passport for several weeks before, and it was too inconvenient for me to go at that time. So I suggested that we try something, and that was that the school in Krasnodar brought all the students for the course that they wanted to do with me into the classroom where I had taught previously. And I linked in on what was then called Go Conferencing. So I taught on the television screen, on the monitor, and everyone was in the same classroom. So they were all able to do muscle testing together. They were all, mind you, I think it was 3 people in the course who had already done courses with me before, and were very experienced in basic muscle testing, not fancy muscle testing, but basic muscle testing. And so we were able to use the room. And the first course that I taught with them was 8 days. I was a little bit exhausted by about the 4th day. However, we soldiered on and we did a good job. So that was in my authored work. And then when the pandemic hit in 2020, I learned very differently how to teach with people in their individual homes all around the world, and I had to learn about Zoom, and I'm still learning about Zoom. But I've done many, many, many hours on Zoom, but I've also done a lot of hours previously on Go Conferencing. I don't know even if that app is still around or not. So one is teaching where you are sitting at your dining room table and teaching into a classroom of people. And the other experience I have is individual teaching with everyone in their own homes. Yeah. Thanks, Ger.
Thanks, Sylvia. For people who, for certain classes, like for instance, something like Touch for Health or something that's quite physical, it's great if you can get a couple in the same room. Yeah. So you can watch them muscle test, do you know what I mean? And if you can get people into pairs, that can make it very easy for you to teach people online. Sorry, Jackie, go ahead.
Yes, just to add to the conversation, I think what we're learning from listening to you and Sylvia and the questions is that it's not in person or online. There's many possibilities in between, as Sylvia has said. And I also want to mention about, the blended learning, which is what I really would be interested in myself for Touch for Health, because I like doing the muscle testing balances in person, but there's lots of parts of Touch for Health that will lend themselves quite nicely to being online. And I look forward when I start a new Touch for Health, maybe offering it as a blended, and that might come before or after the practical work, depending on which level. I think thanks for outlining the advantages and disadvantages and really encouraging us to teach online, because there's lots of experience now in the Touch for Health community since 2020. I really love the way it allows us to connect with people all around the world, where normally we just be with people in our own country or area, and the connections and the community and the sharing is different when we can do that. So I've enjoyed that. And one final point to Wayne in relation to the whiteboard. I have found, I think it depends on the kind of workshop, but in the Teaching for Learning workshops, we find we can use the whiteboard for collaborative work. So it's trying to bring the fun and the active learning into the online classroom. So if there's an activity that the students can do together, they can go onto the whiteboard, and everybody, say for example, even in the wellness that I did online, if people wanted to say, what are your idea of stressors, different people can put up things, but you can actually save that and have as a document then afterwards. So there's lots of possibilities with that. It takes you as the instructor out of your comfort zone, I think, and you have to practice it. And that's where we had the play and practice, just for people to come together and practice different things. But you also have to do sort of digital or online learning for the students, because if you just send them away to a whiteboard, they don't know what to do. So you need to put time aside for the students to practice the technology. And one final point with the online that I'd like to contribute is, I think we need more breaks. So actually planning or developing your curriculum for online, it's a lot more work. People think it's easier than teaching in person, but it's actually more work to plan for an online class. But you need to plan in more breaks and think about what's going to be a good length of time for people to be online before they have a 5-minute break or a proper, and the breaks I find are longer as well to accommodate that. And also it is possible to have people go into a breakout room for their break, go and get their tea and come back into a breakout room. We've sort of experimented with that. So just a few ideas.
Great ideas, Jackie, yeah. And I think it is important to include the students and make them part of it rather than them just sitting there listening. So if it's interactive, it's great.
Just picking up on Jackie's point there about the interactive, from not necessarily from teaching Touch for Health or anything like that online, but my experience has been that if you want to give everybody the opportunity to contribute or to relate their experiences, you do need to stretch the time frame that you're allowing, and it's almost a third again in whatever time you've given than you would if you were in a room full of people and you were just asking, because you must make sure that everybody at least is given the opportunity to contribute, and it takes that time to go around to different people.
Thanks. Wayne?
I was just going to add, from my experience, what has worked best is when I've had someone that really knows the material very well, in Belgium, Switzerland, for example, in the room. So I have a room full of students, because online you can't possibly see everyone practicing, because particularly when there's distancing, social distancing going on during COVID. So I could see 2 couples, but I couldn't see everyone. But if you have a local person that sees really what's going on, then when they run into difficulty, they come on camera, I get to see what they're doing, then I can give the feedback. So that works really well. But what doesn't work well is when I've been teaching and you know the person's there, but it's a blank screen and they refuse to show themselves. So I can't see their eyeballs, I can't see whether they're still asleep, whether they're awake or whatever. And to me, that is a waste of time.
Or if they're still there, Wayne.
That's true. That's true. You don't know.
This is right. That was good, Wayne. Very good. Thank you. Ger, thank you so much. You put a lot of work into that, and a lot of thought into it, and to construct it and bring it together, and then for the conversation to continue from other people who have had experiences. So thank you so much.